Summer at the Dursleys by Mastercardin42. Chapter 8. Wellington Academy. Ooh. Unsurprisingly, Ron's reaction to Percy's letter to Ginny was about the same as his sister. Unimaginable fury. Ironically, Hermione's thoughts on the letter mirrored Harry's, and she found a bit of amusement in Percy's pompousness and assertion that Ginny was this innocent flower who needed his protection. Neville even thought Percy's letter was a bit much, though he, Harry and Hermione had never had a sibling to compare it to. However, Ron did find some discomfort in Ginny's reply letter, particularly her opening on her fake pregnancy. "Do you have to say you're pregnant?" he asked. "You realise I'm not really pregnant, right?" replied Ginny, a bit annoyed. "I know, but do you have to say that? Do you really need to?" He continued. "Yes, because if you're bothered by that part, imagine Percy's reaction. He'll lose it," replied Ginny, the thought of an upset Percy easing her annoyance. Neither of them noticed, but Harry shifted uncomfortably at this conversation. If any feelings towards Ginny were growing within him, he knew not only would Ron have a fit, but the collective Weasley clan would probably go mad. Despite her insistence she was not this needy child, out of all the family members, the entire Weasley family was most protective of Ginny. The idea of any boy, even someone as close as Harry, kissing or touching Ginny would send the family into a beast mode. Harry remembered Molly and Arthur's reaction when they learnt Ginny was taken to the Chamber of Secrets, as well as Ron's reaction to Ginny having dated Michael. "I think it's rather funny," said Hermione. "You can say something about me in it, if you like." "Yeah, say Hermione was the one who got me hooked on drugs," added Ron. "Can I be included?" asked Neville, all too enthusiastic to join in. "Say I eloped with someone or something." "Got it, Neville," said Ginny, writing away. "Say Neville eloped in Vegas," said Hermione. "What's Vegas?" said Ginny. "It's a place in America where muggles go to loosen up. It's called Sin City, so you know Percy will hate it," explained Hermione. "Okay, you five," said Mrs. Figg, partially stern yet partially amused. "Enough of this. If Mrs. Longbottom or Mrs. Weasley hear about this, well, you'll give Fred and George a run for their money." "You know about Fred and George?" asked Harry. "I met with Neville's gran and Ginny and Ron's mum before any of you came. Mrs. Weasley was very concerned about you coming back here," replied Mrs. Figg, pointing to Harry, causing him to shudder. "What do you know about the Dursleys and Harry?" asked Hermione. Harry glared at her, but she ignored him. Mrs. Figg shrugged, regret in her eyes, yet she looked straight at Hermione. "All I can say is, there is no love lost between the Dursleys and the Potters. However, what you've seen of them is who they are. To me, they are the worst type of muggle. Selfish, uncaring, self-absorbed, vain, materialistic, and spoiled," explained Mrs. Figg. "Why do they hate him?" asked Hermione further. "Hermione," said Harry, frustrated. "I've told you. They just hate magic. They hate anything they consider abnormal." Harry's right. The Dursleys are the type of people who hate anything they see as odd. I've seen Petunia Dursley write a letter to City Hall because of someone's lawn was too long," said Mrs. Figg. "Hermione, Harry's relatives are like the Malfoys. Some people are just bad," agreed Ron. "They're right, Hermione, probably. There's just some people out there who are just, well, rotten," added Neville. Hermione looked unconvinced, and determined to stay otherwise, but at the advice of her peers, she dropped the subject for now and sat back in her chair. Harry discreetly breathed a sigh of relief, which thankfully no one noticed. "Harry, you wouldn't mind if you use Hedwig to send this to Percy?" asked Ginny, handing him the letter. "Knock yourself out. Remember to tell us all what his reaction is," Harry replied, putting the letter in his pocket. "That reminds us," said Ron, putting a package down on the table. "More sweets from your mum?" asked Neville hopefully. "No. This is the stuff from Fred and George," replied Ron with a wicked smile. "I don't think I should be here to see this," said Mrs. Figg, leaving the room. Soon the others, even Hermione, had joined in at the table, surrounding the packet of the latest Weasley's Wizard Wheezers projects. Probably to avoid the suspicion or wrath of Mrs. Weasley, Fred and George had kept the supplies sent to a minimum, yet still managed to send their top products: sweating powder, farting fudge, Pro Acme cream, and just for old time's sake, tongue toffee, as well as a small variety of other products. Don't use the tongue toffee. My aunt and uncle would know what it is in a heartbeat, warned Harry. Yeah, put that aside. We shouldn't use the disappearing wand either. Why would Harry's cousin even go near a wand? I'd say the exploding bubblegum is out too. Seems too extreme, said Hermione. How about the farting fudge? Pointed out Ginny. I could see him chowing down on some fudge. Not as much as you'd think, disagreed Harry. Besides, I think you should save that for my Uncle Vernon. He's always had a sweet tooth. Always used to catch him sneaking into the fridge at night for a late night snack. I was thinking about using the sweating powder, pondered Harry. Really? From Ron. Yeah, we could sneak it into his boxing gloves before he practices, replied Harry. I can see that working. You, Neville, or Ron could sneak the powder in, suggested Hermione. That's brilliant, Hermione, beamed Ron, causing Hermione to blush. I agree, said Ginny. I'm with you till the end, said Neville. So it's decided, said Ron, holding the containing packet of sweating powder. We'll use the sweating powder. Just one warning, none of us can touch it. One touch and you'll be sweating like you're in a tropical rainforest. My aunt has some plastic gloves we could use, offered Harry. That could help. We should try to put the powder in before he leaves for practice anyway, said Hermione. That's the plan, said Ron, looking at the entire room. Let's make Fred and George proud. Line break. The evening of Dudley's practice came with little surprise from Harry's group, or Dudley. Harry, Ron and Neville placed the powder into Dudley's gloves without a hitch. They even had some extra left, and put it into his shorts, just to be safe. Dudley slipped the gloves and shorts on without even an itch. Ron said the powder took half an hour to come into effect. Dudley was completely oblivious to any possible suspicious behaviour or wrongdoing by Harry or his friends. Despite his clear discontent with Harry, Ron and Neville tagging along, the thought of Hermione and Ginny watching him practice and work out sent the hormonal part of Dudley's mind into overdrive. Harry smiled at how clueless Dudley was to how little Hermione and Ginny cared for him. Even Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia were unsuspecting of what Harry's gang was up to. They were too busy doting over Dudley. Now you're about to see what a real sport looks like, and what a real man looks like. Vernon snarled at Harry proudly as they left. We'll be back, Mr. and Mrs. Dursley. Don't worry, said Hermione. Neither of Harry's relatives addressed her, except to glare and grunt at the young witch as she and her friends left. Dudley's practice was being held at the local boxing club, which was a large building that was bland and unmistakably normal as the rest of Little Whinging. It was called Sylvester's Gym. As Harry and his friends entered, the gym gave off the strange smell of air conditioner, which was probably to mask the smell of body odour. The gym was run by an older yet stern and hardened-looking man named Bunsby, who looked to be pushing 55. Looked like he could win any fight with a single punch. Despite the young Dursley acting with enthusiasm when he met him, once Dudley's back was turned, Harry caught a glimpse of Bunsby rolling his eyes in disgust at the boxer. Harry recognised that look anywhere. It was the same look that members of Aunt Petunia's Lady Club would give her, the same look that Uncle Vernon's co-workers gave him behind their backs. The look that they secretly loathed the Dursleys as much as Harry did. It was a look he took solace in. Dudley was wearing his usual boxing clothes, which both Harry, Ron and Ginny thought he looked rather silly in. To their excitement, it looked as though the sweating powder had begun to take its effects. Dudley's forehead was now dripping wet. Despite this merely being a practice, Dudley treated it like it was an actual match, inviting friends and 2 other students at Smeltings that Harry was surprised to see that the other 2 attendants were girls, one of which he recognised as Claire Templeton, one of his former preschool classmates, who had a slim figure and short, light blonde hair. When Harry and his friends sat down near her and Dudley's gang, Claire and her friend both stared uncomfortably at Harry, and decided to distance themselves from him. Harry just ignored them. Here, Miss Granger, sit next to me, offered Piers. Ron glared at him, yet Hermione patted him on the shoulder in reassurance. It's fine, she said, standing up and taking a seat next to an overly joyous Piers. Hello, I'm Hermione Granger, said Hermione to Claire. Claire Templeton, she replied courteously, though confused as to why she was acting so nice. Oh, and Ginny, Dudley asked if you'd like to sit closer to the ring to see better, said Piers. No, thanks. I think I'll sit next to Harry, replied Ginny politely. Piers frowned, and Harry took the opportunity to give Dudley's lackey a triumphant grin. Piers turned away and looked at Hermione, who appeared to be regretting her decision as she sat uncomfortably next to Piers, who was staring directly at her. The group sat in the front of the large boxing ring, which stood at the centre of the gym. Dudley was soon entering the ring, along with Bunsby. While Harry's cousin tried to look impressive and mighty, Dudley was sweating profoundly, like he was in the middle of a tropical rainforest or wearing a heavy coat in July. A scrawny and shorter-looking boy entered the ring, looking as well terrified. This must be who Dudley would be practicing with. He reminded Harry of the number of victims Dudley and his gang had bullied throughout the years. "All right, boys, remember the rules," said Bunsby loudly. "This is only a practice, so nothing too extreme. Remember, Dursley?" "Hey, if you can't take the heat, you should get out of the kitchen. That's what my dad says," said Dudley rudely. The owner glared at him. He looked like he was about to retort, but the excessive sweat emanating from Dudley's body distracted him. "You all right, Dursley?" the older man said. "Never better," lied Dudley, wiping sweat from his brow. "You are sweating like a sinner in church," Bunsby replied with a deadpan stare. "It's just a little hot in here," said Dudley. "It's only 60 degrees out, and this building is air-conditioned," replied Bunsby. "Are we here to argue, or are we here to practice?" argued Dudley. Sighing heavily, Bunsby commissioned the two to begin. At first, Dudley was sure of himself, and the scared look on the boy's face he was practicing with fueled his confidence. The boy was able to dodge most of Dudley's punches, yet finally the Dursley boy was able to force his challenger into the corner. He was about to give a large punch when something happened. Something that surprised everyone but Harry's group. Dudley missed. The excessive sweat had begun to blind Dudley, and he was soon punching and waving his fists around randomly like an angry chimpanzee. Dudley's challenger didn't even fight back at first. He was too busy laughing at Dudley's predicament. "Get it together, Big D!" cried Piers. However, soon Harry and all his friends were trying in vain to withhold giggles and laughter. Even Claire and her friend were laughing into their sleeves, much to the embarrassment of Dudley's gang. Besides Dudley's gang, the only person not entertained by this display was Bunsby, who saw this poor example of boxing as an insult to his beloved sport. For the most part, he sat in the corner, shaking his head in disappointment. Finally, after snapping out of his amusement, the boy Dudley was practicing on threw a single punch at the large brute. The punch was soft, and he and the boy's hand was shaking when he threw it, but nevertheless it sent Dudley to the ground. This was not based on the ferocity of the punch, but rather because Dudley had sweat so much that now a small puddle had appeared beneath his feet, causing the Dursley boy to slip. "That's it," snapped Bunsby, getting up and entering the ring. "Dursley, go home." "What?" shouted Dudley, trying to get to his feet. "You heard me. Or is there too much sweat in your ears as well?" Bunsby said coldly. "I'm fine." If Dudley had gotten a good look at himself in a mirror, he would see that he was far from fine. His clothes were now drenched in sweat, looking like he had been thrown in a pool, and the sweat had blinded him to the point he wasn't even looking directly at Bunsby. Not only that, but the sweat was causing such terrible body odour that no amount of air freshener could hide it, and even from a distance, Harry and the others could smell it. "You look like you're having a heat flash. Take a shower, go home, and come back when you've got yourself together," Bunsby replied firmly. "Come, Willie, I'll find you someone else to practice with." The scrawny boy, Willie, gave a satisfied smile to Dudley before following Bunsby out the ring. Dudley threw his boxing ring gloves in the ring in disgust, and Harry for a second thought he had given to one of his old childhood tantrums. However, he begrudgingly left the ring and gestured for Piers and his gang to follow him, which they proudly did. "Till we meet again," said Piers to Hermione, awkwardly trying to kiss her hand. "Thanks," replied Hermione uncomfortably. Once the skinny Polkus boy was gone, Ron approached Hermione looking livid. "Hermione, remember to wash your hands," said Ron angrily. "I think I'll go and do that now," she said. Hermione rushed into the bathroom, immediately washing her hands using extra soap. She left the restroom. She was shocked to see Claire waiting for her. The girl seemed nice, despite knowing Dudley, but Hermione was taken aback at her behaviour and reaction to Harry. "Hello, Claire," she replied. "Hi," said Claire politely. Something seemed to be weighing on this girl's mind, and Hermione, being ever observant, sensed this. "Is there something you wanted to ask?" "Yes," said Claire. "You seem nice. So, I must know. Why are you friends with that boy?" "What?" replied Hermione in false confusion, though she knew perfectly well what this was about. "Harry Potter, Dudley's cousin. Why are you friends with him? You do know where he goes to school, right? He hasn't lied to you about who he is?" warned Claire. Hermione smiled. She knew this girl didn't mean any offence. After all, she was just believing the lie that Harry's relatives fed her. "No, he goes to school with me," said Hermione firmly. "But St. Brutus's is only for boys," said Claire, shocked. "I don't know about this St. Brutus's, but Harry goes to school with me up north, at Wellington Academy," Hermione explained. Claire was stunned and confused, looking like she wanted to wrap her head around this whole thing. "No, he goes to St. Brutus's. That's what Dudley and his parents said." "Then why do I remember taking every class with him for the past 5 years?" said Hermione. She then rummaged through her bag and took out a flyer for this Wellington Academy and handed it to Claire. "You can look it up if you wish." "Thanks, I will," said Claire, looking unconvinced. Little did Hermione know, Harry had been listening in closely, and seemed to be as confused as Claire was. What is Wellington Academy? Why is Hermione saying we go there? Harry thought. He'd be sure to ask her later, as he had to move away quickly when Hermione was done talking to Claire. As he moved further away, he could hear Dudley talking with his gang loudly. Years of listening in to conversations, whether in the cupboard or under his invisibility cloak, had developed him to develop rather sneaky ways of spying. Besides, Dudley and his friends were too dumb to realise how loud they were. "Are you sure you want to guess some, Big Two? They don't seem all that into you," replied Malcolm. "Trust me, they want us," replied Dudley. "Yeah, did you see how that Granger girl acted when I asked her to sit next to me? She was practically eating out of my hand," said Piers confidently. "But why those two?" asked Gordon. "They're friends with Potter." "Yeah, thought that redhead had a nice behind, though," said Dennis. "Yeah, and she's gonna be mine," said Dudley. "Trust me, by the end of the summer, Piers and I will school with them." "Why do you want the redhead so badly?" asked Piers. "Because I think Potter likes her too," Dudley said with a wicked smile. "He should know by now that in this house he doesn't get anything until after I'm done with it." A fury and anger began to burn inside Harry's chest. Who were they to talk in such a disrespectful tone about his friends? Hermione and Ginny were people, not toys. Dudley could play with and then get sick of. He clenched his fists and was about to approach them when he heard a soothing voice. "You all right, Harry?" asked Ginny, concerned. The sound of her voice seemed to calm much of his anger, though he still felt rage towards Dudley and his buffoons. "Yeah, I'm fine," Harry replied through gritted teeth. "No, you're not," Ginny replied thoughtfully. "You can tell me about it later, but right now, let's go home. I can still smell your cousin from here." Once back at Mrs. Fig's house, much to Harry's anger towards his cousin had deflated, though he still felt a deep rage towards him. However, this rage was distracted by his friend's laughter and merriment at Dudley's display in the gym. They were all sitting in the living room, recalling of the events that unfolded. "I still can't believe he slipped in his own sweat!" roared Ron with laughter. "He looked like a child on the floor," said Ginny. "Wait till we tell Fred and George." "I know," replied Neville. "They're going to be so jealous." "More like proud," said Ginny. "Yes," replied Hermione, agreeing pleasantly. Harry had noticed that throughout the conversation, Hermione was smiling triumphantly and pleased, and this satisfied Hermione reminded him earlier of her conversation with Claire. Hermione, what's Wellington Academy? Asked Harry. The rest of the group stopped laughing and looked at him confused. However, Hermione smiled, looking as pleased with herself as if she had just passed her OWLs and NEWTs in the same day. I'm glad you asked, Harry, she said. She took from her bag a pamphlet with the bright words of Wellington Academy that strangely had the familiar crest of Hogwarts on the cover. Hermione held the pamphlet up and prepared to speak. I don't know if Harry has told you, but his relatives have told everyone in this town that Harry goes to a school for criminals, explained Hermione. Harry looked slightly embarrassed, especially when Ginny and Neville looked at him for confirmation. Harry nodded, meaning yes. While Neville appeared confused, Ginny looked angry, but let Hermione finish. Yes, so I took it upon myself to correct his relatives, explained Hermione. Blimey, you didn't tell him about Hogwarts? Said Neville worriedly. No, well, not in a way, replied Hermione. What do you mean, not in a way? What's going on? What's Wellington Academy? Asked Ron, rubbing his head. You see, Ronald, Wellington Academy is Hogwarts. Well, it's a cover for Hogwarts. You, Ginny and Neville wouldn't know about it because you were raised in magical homes. But Wellington Academy for Gifted Youngsters is a cover for Hogwarts, explained Hermione. Everyone, even Harry, looked shocked. Never once, even with the number of Muggle-born students in their dorm, have they ever even heard that there was a cover for Hogwarts. Most said that their parents told everyone they attended a school up north, but never said what the name was. It was Dumbledore's idea, continued Hermione. When the parents of Muggle-born students are asked where their children go to school, or where they spend most of the year at, they use Wellington Academy as a cover. Here, you can see everything in the pamphlet. Hermione laid the pamphlet down on the floor and opened it. The front cover had an unmoving image of a glorious campus, resembling a college rather than an academy, with the Hogwarts crest in the centre, only with a large W replacing the usual H for Hogwarts. Harry and the others looked on in curiosity and amazement. Hermione looked pleased. The description read, Wellington Academy for Gifted Youngsters has been the toast of English education for over 100 years. We have taken and accepted some of the most respected and successful individuals in England and Scotland has seen, including Winston Churchill, George Orwell, and Tony Blair. Our current headmaster, Albert Dumbledore. Albert Dumbledore? Said Ron, amused at the muggleization of Dumbledore's name. Keep reading, it gets better, said Hermione. Has ensured that Wellington continues to archive great and newest heights. We strive not only for excellence in our school, but kindness in our students. Wellington students and faculty are known for their diversity and dedication to education, bringing a bright future to England and Europe. Never thought Dumbledore would be full of himself to do this, said Ron. It was more for the students than for him, answered Hermione. Ron turned the pamphlet over to an image that caught Harry off guard. There was a clearly forged, yet convincing photo of Harry wearing a football uniform on the football field. What's this? Said Harry, surprised. Well, they had to make it convincing, so they made some fake photos of students' clubs and activities. This is the football team, which is made up of the school's best Quidditch players, said Hermione. What's football? Asked Hermione. It's a Muggle sport. I think the Americans call it soccer for some odd reason, explained Hermione. I remember hearing Dean talk about it once, said Neville. Harry looked deeply into the fake photograph and could see that this football team was made up of various Quidditch players at the school. There was him, Katie Bell, Oliver Wood, Fred and George, as well as players from other houses like Draco Malfoy, Marcus Flint, and Cho Chang, and Roger Davies. Even if it was fake, Harry thought these witches and wizards looked out of place playing a Muggle sport, especially Draco, who loathed all things Muggle. He especially found the fake pictures of the Wellington cheerleading team behind everything more shocking, as it featured the Patel twins, Lavender Brown and Pansy Parkinsons looking perky in cheerleading outfits. What are those? Said Neville, who, along with Ron, were grinning at their classmates in cheerleading uniforms. They're cheerleaders. They cheer the players on, replied Hermione, annoyed at her male friend's response. Moving on. Hermione turned the page to reveal herself, as well as Neville and a few others, in another fake photo of a chemistry club, run none other by Professor Snape. Everyone burst into laughter again, upon seeing Snape, everyone's least favourite teacher, in Muggle attire, which included a bow tie and a short-sleeved shirt, though he retained his signature trademark sneer. "Is that Snape?" roared Ginny, falling back onto the floor in laughter. "He looks like a nerd," said Harry. "Can I keep this? I have to show Sirius." "Sure, I have plenty more," replied Hermione. "Can I have one too?" said Ron. "Wait till Fred and George see this," said an excited Ginny. Then a realization dawned on Harry which caused his smile to fade. "Hermione, I know what you did, but trust me, it won't work. Why do you think that giving that to Claire would just change the way people see me?" Hermione just smiled. "Oh, Harry, Claire is a teenage girl. If I have learnt anything from Parvati and Lavender, it's that once a teenage girl learns a juicy piece of gossip, they can't help but spread it. Just you wait and see." Harry still looked unconvinced. The rest of the evening went by pleasantly, with all 5 teenagers joking and laughing at the expense of both Dudley and Snape, as well as the idea behind this Wellington Academy. Finally, as the night was drawing to a close, they decided it was time to go to bed. Ron and Hermione decided to walk ahead together, while Ginny asked Harry to hang back. "You guys head back. I want to ask Harry something," said Ginny. Ron and Hermione complied, walking off. "So," Ginny asked outside Mrs. Figg's home, "what was bothering you earlier?" With all the laughter, Harry had completely forgotten what about Dudley's disrespectful comments towards Ginny and Hermione. "It would only upset you," Harry replied. "Try me," said Ginny, determined. Harry then proceeded to describe Dudley's lewd comments about his desire to sleep with her. While he was done, he expected her to be disgusted, but she only laughed. "He actually thinks me and Hermione would want him and his rat friend," joked Ginny. "Haven't you noticed how neither of us care for him?" "You're not upset?" said Harry. "Of course not. Both me and Hermione know those two have a thing for us. But do you honestly think we have any desire to date them, let alone sleep with them?" said Ginny. "Well, now that you mention it, I don't know why any woman would want to sleep with Dudley," joked Harry, causing Ginny to laugh harder. "I'd rather go on a date with a bloody baron or the great squid in the lake than that lump of a cousin of yours. At least they'd know how to treat a lady," said Ginny. "I almost asked the giant squid to the Yule Ball," joked Harry. "Honestly, the only woman who could love Dudley is his mother. Why do you let it bother you?" "I just don't like him talking about you that way. Wanted to punch him when I heard it," said Harry angrily. "Always a gentleman," said Ginny. "It was just the way he was talking about you and Hermione like you were objects," replied Harry. "I know he hasn't got a chance with either of you, but that wasn't why I was upset. He shouldn't be talking about you like that." "We can take care of ourselves," replied Ginny, "but thanks for your concern." "I know you can take care of yourself. I just care about you as well." Without fully realizing what he was doing, Harry had grabbed Ginny's hand. The two of them stopped dead in their tracks, red beginning to form on both of their cheeks. They stood there for what felt like a while, Ginny staring between Harry and their entangled hands. After a long pause, Ginny retrieved her hand and began walking back into the house. "Good night, Harry," she said. "Good night," he replied, waving, not entirely sure what had just happened. Once she was back inside and Harry had begun walking home, Ginny leaned against the front door, her childlike grin forming and her cheeks blushing feverishly. "I held Harry's hand," she thought. "Harry Potter reached for my hand and I took it. We held hands." End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that because I certainly did. Oh, Dudley. A slice of humble pie. I'm not sure you like the taste. Also, can we just say, Ginny's at oldest 14 here, and Dudley's 15. I get that he's a horny boy, but really? Really? Okay, just calm down, TJ, calm down. Anyway, again with the amazing interactions between the couples, Ron getting all protective over Hermione, nice. And, of course, the piece de resistance, Wellington Academy. Holy flippin' moly, that's pure genius! Mastercardin42, I don't know if you will ever listen to this, but you, my good author, are a genius. You really are. That is incredible. And also, Draco playing football and Snape in a chemistry lab. And, well, while I begrudge the whole teenage girls spreading gossip thing, let's just say people spread gossip, okay? Fake news is everywhere, even though it shouldn't be. Anyway, you guys know the drill by now. Like, comment and subscribe, hit the bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video, and remember to have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Bye!